Because it's horrible. It's such a bad game.
I saw worse though. I feel like I know I mentioned to you like obviously we don't want to go too explicit or anything here, but that was part of the loss of control of the publishing. Is that one of the things is I think you had some X-rated games that came out, but I saw one that was kind of on the border of all that was called Beat 'em and Eat 'em. And,
oh God,
dude, it was horrible.
Beat 'em and eat 'em.
Did you see that one?
Check out my mug, dude.
Nice.
Yeah.
What's it say on it?
It doesn't say anything.
Okay.
Jeez.
It's like a sophisticated reindeer. It was
You've
kind of
been
there was some glare
researching way
there.
too much, man. If I'm showing you a picture and you're seeing letters, something's going. Damn.
That's called dyslexia.
Hello, podcast.
Yeah.
No, it's an elk with a hipster sweater and a hipster shirt, and he's got some chill glasses and a coffee, and he's just chilling, dude.
He's a chill elk, yeah.
Yeah, man.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got some good coffee going there?
You betcha. How you doing?
Doing pretty good, man. I've actually been a little under the weather, like kind of fighting off a stomach bug of sorts. So yeah, I'm hanging in there.
Well, I hope you feel better.
Yeah.
Our listeners don't care. They probably don't care. They're a bunch of savages. No, I'm just playing.
That's right. Yeah.
They also care.
You're to tough it
Man,
out.
yeah, hoping you feel better. Thanks for coming up for this episode, even though you're a little under the weather. It's good to see you again. Nice hat. Looks like a little, is that a pig on a longboard surfing?
Yeah. Wave hog, son.
Wave hog, I love it. Always dropping in on people.
That's right.
God, the worst kind of human. Those are like wave hogs or people that drop in on you while surfing are basically the equivalent of a camper or something like that in Warzone or something.
Yeah, they are
You know
kind
what I
of
mean?
hated.
Kind of the same vibe.
In my surfing career, it was always like I was pretty much just out of control, so it was an unintentional drop in. But like if I was in the right place, it was probably only going to be once that day, so I pretty much went.
You got to get your waves in too. If you're paddling out, you want to get it. You want to. Well, the paddle out's always good, but you want to get a wave.
Yeah. Those are few and far between for me. So yeah. But I definitely tried to be respectful and that kind of thing. But yeah.
Well, you've always got a classy hat on, ChukTomahawk.
Yeah. So how things going over your way, man? No, I thought I saw a hurricane.
No storms.
Another hurricane coming up the.
Oh, don't say that. I'll check after the podcast. I hope not. But yeah, we've been getting some rains and some storms. We got a little side swipe from a hurricane last weekend, I think it was. Yeah, I think so. Last weekend or the weekend before. What was it? Hurricane K came through and gave us a nice little shaking up. Everything's fine though. Thank you for asking. All good down here.
Yeah. Well, shoot, man. Let's knock this introduction out, and we'll do some catching up here.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Well, we want to welcome gamers, non-gamers, PvEers, and PvPers, and even NPCs.
That's right.
Yeah, we don't discriminate here at the New Wave Gaming Podcast. And I'm ChukTomahawk. And
I'm Ovox.
Yeah.
Sorry, man. I got this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's
No,
the first time I've thrown that off to you there. I'm used to coming in that part. So, yeah, I'm ChukTomahawk. I'm here kind of going to walk us through a really interesting episode, something that's came up in a bunch of other research for us. So I hope folks are ready. We've got a good one on tap for you here.
Yeah, man. I feel like this topic has just been like sitting there, and a lot of our discussions we've had poking at us, going like, hey, because it keeps coming up.
Yeah,
it keeps coming up in multiple episodes, and it just seems like it needed to be discussed. in a Chuck T and Ovox type of way.
Yeah, and what we're talking about here, folks, is the video game crash of 1983.
Yeah, I saw in an article or two people referring to it as the North American game crash of 1983. You know, in some places. But I mean, we'll get into that.
Yeah, it almost seemed like a lot of the immediate effects were definitely in North America, and then maybe some of the after effects.
Seems like North America definitely caused it. It definitely happened there, man. That's where all the meat and potatoes went down.
Yeah, so we kind of want to get into that and look at sort of what did cause this, and maybe some lessons that can be learned from it, and sort of what some of the repercussions are that we're still dealing with today. But can I see, do we have any sort of housekeeping we got to do as far as like corrections?
Well, yeah, I'm gonna frame those corrections in the best way possible because I don't remember exactly where I may have made a boo boo or two. But before that, Chuck, where can the listeners reach out to us if they want to send us some love, send us some recommendations, ideas, maybe if they want to help get the podcast out there to more listeners?
Yeah, that would be at ovoxandchuk@gmail.com, and that's ovoxandchuk@gmail.com.
We're always open to hear ideas. Episode ideas, of course, discussion topics, anything like that. You want to just reach out and say, what up? We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
For sure. We've also got a Facebook page. It's facebook.com/New Wave Gaming Podcast. That / New Wave Gaming Podcast, all one word. You can check out our Facebook page. We share a bunch of like memes and cool pictures of gaming stuff and nerdy stuff, and you can always reach out to us there too, or drop a like on the page. We'd love it.
Yeah.
I think the most helpful thing, dear listeners, fellow gamers, if go to your podcast listening app of choice, your favorite one, and if there's a way where you can rate and review us, that would be the most helpful thing because that gets the podcast out to more listeners, and that'd be awesome. We'd really appreciate that, man. I'll give you a little PlayStation trophy for that.
That's right.
Hell, even if it's a bad review, you can be like, this is like the worst gaming podcast on the planet. As long as it's a 5-star rating, we'll shout you out.
That's right.
we'll read the review.
That's right. And then find out where you live.
Oh no, max level Chuck T coming at me. No bueno. No gracias.
No,
anyways, yeah, but definitely. Let's lead the way, man.
Yeah, well, so I'm curious what games you've been playing lately. Are you still playing Eve as far as like in your free time and whatnot?
I like Eve a lot, man. It's been kind of a game I've been going to before bed, because you can do a lot of market transactions on there within the Eve universe. So I like to very passively, when I'm not feeling like going deep into Eve and doing missions and stuff like that, I can just go into these space docks, and some of them have markets. I think they all have markets, but anyways, some of them are better than others, but you can go to these space docks where they have a large amount of people transacting in the market, and you can just buy stuff and sell stuff. So I'll just go in, look at what type of products, which are all player created. I'll see what's selling good or buying what sorry, I'm stumbling over my words here. I'll just look at what the market's doing and what's worth buying and selling, and I'll just do some stuff like that for 30 minutes to an hour. Maybe go do a quick mission or something while I'm waiting on an order to go through, and it's so much fun, man. It's really cool. I don't know why. That's such a weird, it's such a weird high in gaming. Really, you like to just go into the Eve market and just sit there and do market deals. It's fun, for me.
Yeah. What's interesting, I saw a trailer come up for it in a YouTube video I was watching recently. I don't know if
For
those
Eve?
algorithms, figured out I was interested in playing it or what.
That's because I was trying to convince you to download it.
Isn't that scary?
You should. It's free, dude.
Yeah. I actually have it on there. Kind of what I've been up to. I honestly, I hadn't opened Steam since I'd gotten my new computer. So all those games like Valheim and that stuff were just kind of sitting in there in Steam up in the cloud, I guess. So I finally cracked that open, and Eve was one of the things that I downloaded. I haven't played it yet, but something I did that was kind of unusual and probably no surprise to you is I decided to start playing Ark on Steam, and I downloaded all that. And I have to say, like, navigating the new servers and stuff has been kind of difficult.
That's because there's so many more on PC, man.
That's why I came, because I was struggling to find a server that I liked on the PS4 there, just at that current time. I tried
That's
this.
why you came? What do you mean?
That's why I came over to Steam. Yeah.
I didn't quite.
I also came, but that's a
Came
whole
where?
nother story.
You just kind of said, that's why I came, and then left it at that, like I expecting me to understand what you were talking.
Yeah, I came over,
Like, you really like Ark, damn.
I tell you what was crazy is I got on this German server there at the end on the Ark on the PS4, and it was cool. Like it was definitely kind of its own vibe of sorts. But I had people kind of like running up on me asking if I spoke German, like all the time. Like I think they kind of wanted to kind of reserve it for that.
Yeah.
And a lot of them spoke English too, but it was kind of funny how that all played out. And I got raided one night and just kind of.
You're over it.
Yeah, it hurt. I hate it when you get raided and you come back and it's literally just wiped. Like there's no evidence like to learn from. Like oh, they got in over here. Like if I'd have done this different.
Oh, you must have been in like a wood or thatch hut or something, man. Or was it stone?
I was on cliff platforms, like kind of in the ice cave, like where we had a base once before. I was way up in the rafters up there. And I stayed hid for a pretty good while and had a Volanosaur army there to protect me and some turrets. But they got me. It was weird because this one guy had like messaged me. The messaging on there was all like they were always on there. Like as soon as you came on, it would be like Chuck ? Like and ultimately this guy was asking me, are there any big bases to raid? And I don't know. Like something made me feel like he had some kind of cheat that like me typing or something figured out where I was, because like I got raided that night. But that's just me thinking. But
there's always ideas always come up in the mind after that, but at the end of the day,
so no evidence. But I did came over to the Steam after that, and I tell you, man, I've saw videos before of like all these tools, like these mods or whatever, and it's fun to get to finally have those, like where like a binoculars that I can look at dinos and see their stats.
It tells you what their level is and everything.
That's super sweet, man.
That's dope.
I
have Ark on Steam as well.
It's been tough to kind of navigate, like I haven't been able to successfully switch from one map to the other, like during the game, and I can't exactly figure out why. But they were having some server issues too, so I'm gonna try that again. But I'll probably still do both. But yeah, it's kind of interesting to get over there.
You just let me know when you get tired of Ark. It'll happen. It might be another year, but it'll happen.
Yeah. Yeah, like a good Arkin, like there's times like when it hurts, like when you lose something valuable to you, or have a bad experience. I've been getting picked up by bats constantly lately. Like that's the new go-to move, is like the guy's on a bat and he grabs me and sucks the blood out of me and bites me. Like the bat is one animal that can hold you and bite you at the same time, and like I'm trying to find out like a defense for that. Like I've been carrying around blood packs, like to stop it from sucking the life out of me, and also like maybe have a net, like to possibly net the dude. But there has to be a defense for it. But that's how I've been killed more than not lately. So I got my own bats, and I'm I'm ready to go there. But yeah, that's kind of what I've been up to otherwise. And
I'm glad you're enjoying Ark, man.
Yeah.
I recently bought Ghost of Tsushima. I'm just kidding. That's a bad joke. I love sashimi.
Dude, I love when someone explains to me the difference between sushi and sashimi. Like it's kind of like here in Asheville, you get someone explaining like craft beer or something. Like my eyes just glow over like what it is to be a vegan. It's like, no, but is it fun? Like it's like swordplay.
Super fun, man. Yeah, like I've been waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting for it to go on sale or to have a discount, and it's just not happening. You know, on the PlayStation Store, it's been at $40 forever. And of course, I have the $40. Obviously, I pulled the trigger, but I was just waiting and waiting and waiting for it to go on sale, thinking, "Gosh, it's been a while now. It's been out for a little bit. It's got to go on sale." It never went on sale, so I got it, and it's probably going to go on sale Monday. You know, that's how that works.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it's really fun. I'm only just getting into it, so there's nothing I can spoil. But the scenery and the environments and the look of the game, the colors, it's unreal, man. It's unreal, and it's amazing. It runs so smoothly on like a old PlayStation 4 like the one I have, because there's a lot of screen activity in the game. Like there's this place called the Yellow Forest where and there's like always wind blowing. So in this region of the Yellow Forest, there's a lot of leaves all over the place, and the wind's always kind of just blowing. So your dude. See, I forgot his name, but that's how long I've been playing it. Your dude just like runs through this forest, and all these leaves, like a lot of leaves. Like whoever the art director was like, let's go turn it up on the leaves, you know. Freaking is there a lever for that? Put it at maximum.
More leaves.
More,
like they react to you.
Can
though?
I get more leaves, please? No, more.
Yeah, I'm gonna need you to bring in a few more leaves. But are they reacting to you?
No, they're just always. There's just these leaves just always blowing through the air. So, you know, that tells me a lot of weight on the CPU or whatever, you know, the machinery of the PlayStation. It's a big load. You know, there's a lot for the PlayStation to process. You remember when Fist Pump, aka Pepe Tortilla, when we were playing Ark, his PlayStation would always heat up whenever he got close to the air conditioning units, because they would emit this smoke, this steam thing in the game, and that smoke caused it wasn't smoke, it was just like vapor steam. That vapor would cause his PlayStation to really run hard, you know, like it'd really start running. So I look at this game, Ghost of Tsushima, and just how alive the environment is in the game, the map, and how much movement there is always. It's just like, wow, man, they really designed a smooth running game here.
Wow.
And and I could tell you, oh man, the combat's amazing, and this is amazing, and this riding like all of that's there. All of those elements that you would expect from a slash game like this, and with an open world map, everything is there that you would expect. Sometimes there are a couple of things that I was like, oh, come on, you guys could have put a little bit more effort into this. Is like when you harvest resources from the map, like you'll see a bamboo tree and you'll approach it and it'll say harvest bamboo or take bamboo, and you'll hit the button, and instead of there being like an animation for like the samurai dude taking that bamboo, it just disappears and it's in your inventory. So you hit the button and it just goes poof, and it's in your inventory. So, and that's fine. I mean, I'm not, no biggie, but they could have like maybe done something cooler there. Like in Red Dead Redemption 2, where Arthur, like he's in, he forages stuff, you can see him, or when he harvests a pelt, he goes down and he like cuts open the animal and like harvests a pelt, and it's like, wow, man, that's something like that. Because like honestly, Ghost of Tsushima kind of reminds me of Red Dead Redemption, but like samurai version.
Nice.
Honestly, like so far, yeah, it's like it's got a lot of similarities.
It has a big open world like that, like where you can play online with people.
It seems to be a huge open world, and there is a multiplayer DLC called, I think it's a DLC, whatever. There's a multiplayer mode called Legends, and It looks pretty dope. I have it downloaded. It was actually free in the PlayStation Store some months back. Definitely check it out, Chuck. I mean, for sure.
Yeah.
It's a badass game. I had been torn between that game and Spider-Man. I wanted to get Spider-Man. And Spider-Man's been going on sale a bunch, but I ended up going with Ghost of Tsushima because I got this thing. I love samurai stuff, and I really want to go to Japan really bad.
Yeah.
Anyways,
yeah,
that was a long
exciting.
little rant right there.
Yeah, I've been interested in that game too. There was a game Ninja Gaiden back in the day that I think really cemented that in my like love of video games. And I used to draw ninjas all the time. I think I mentioned this in an episode before, but like drawing these underground layers and ninjas, and like there were these I want to say it was like at the Army surplus store, plus in the back of these magazines, like you could order those shurikens, like the throwing stars.
Yeah.
And dude, I had a little ninja kit as a kid, like the little tabby socks and some throwing stars. And
Damn,
like,
man.
Yeah, imagine a little chunky ninja sneaking around.
Yeah. I think if you're I'm just kidding.
I want to say like I think they're called shurikens or something like that.
Yeah.
Is like the real name, but
I think you're right, yeah.
I would we had this big wood pile stacked up out behind the house there, and I'd go just chuck those suckers in there like
Damn.
yeah.
Did you ever go move up to throwing knives?
I want to say
It's a little bit more challenging to throw a throwing knife.
it was almost like these were more available, and I think knives were a little more restricted. Like they wouldn't sell a kid a knife, but they'd sell you that thing, you know, like because I wasn't old enough to have a knife, really not old enough to have that throwing star. But I remember I got some book at the library at school, and it talked about the ninjas like slowing their heartbeat down and stuff. Like I was always working on shit like that, you know, and like all kinds of. Yeah. So I feel you, man. That's a fun theme in a game.
Like working on your step so no one can hear you. You better put a bunch of aluminum foil down.
Yeah.
Your dad walks in. Why is there all this aluminum foil on the ground? You can't hear me. You can't even see me.
Yeah, I remember distinctly like they showed all these techniques of walking down a wall, like hugging a wall, kind of, and then you get to the window and you've got to go low and like I was always doing that, you know, like.
Oh, dude, not to go down another side path, but I think the part of that comes from the fact that there were so many awesome ninja movies for kids and teenagers back in the 80s and 90s, man.
And the G.I. Joe, like Storm Shadow, like was
exactly kicking butt with the classic martial arts in movies was big back then.
Yeah.
And then they had movies of all genres with ninja stuff, from action to comedy to other other genres and stuff.
I'd like to think we had Bruce Lee to probably thank for that. I think he obviously lived a really short life there, but he sewed that. You know, to me, he was just unimaginably amazing. Like what I think of as a real ninja. You know, like you see some of those things, those feats that he's done, like that 1-inch punch thing he does, and like you see him playing ping pong with nunchucks, and he's like just toying with the people. Like
that's badass. The 1-inch punch thing, man. I don't know about that, but the ping pong with the nunchucks, that's badass.
Yeah.
And to think, man, there's kids that don't even know who Bruce Lee is.
Yeah. I think he played this guy named Kato on the Green Hornet or something, and he like stole the show from the Green Hornet. Like it was just unreal. And there's a few people I used to go to the gym with or whatever that I'm still friends with there on the PlayStation. I see they're playing that game as well. So yeah, it's definitely one out there. But I was imagining more like a campaign. But yeah, let's unload a campaign on this video game crash of 1983.
Damn, man. You know, I wouldn't mind a video game crash of 2022, man. If we can get these games down to $4, I'd love to sign into PlayStation Store and Steam and just be like, oh, Modern Warfare 2, $4.99. What? Take my money.
Yeah, and I think you bring up an interesting point there because I don't know, I would have probably been 10, between 10 and 12, like when this was going on. And I don't remember any kind of crash at all. I mean, maybe it would have been on the evening news or something like that, during the finance reports or something. But this seems like
That's interesting.
It was actually good for the consumer. As a consumer, all of a sudden, like you say, we saw games in bargain bins.
Yeah, man. I mean, I don't know how to look at that in any other direction or at any other perspective other than that's awesome for the gamer kid of the 80s,
Yeah.
And they were still, I think kids were still going to the arcades religiously, even after the crash. And I don't want to jump ahead, but
because
that's one of the reasons
really wasn't keeping up, with the quality. Like a lot of the ports just weren't hacking it. So if you wanted to see the innovation and the goods, you had to go there. Yeah. Can you? There we go. You're coming in a little low on mine. There we go. All right.
So, what's the lowdown, Chuck? What's the who, what, when, where, and why on this game crash? And I mean, it happened before I was born, but it's like I mentioned earlier, it's come up in a bunch of our episodes. You were around, but you're mentioning that you didn't really have any recollection of it. And that was the time, I mean, that was back in the day when, your average living room had a TV going with some sort of news channel or something going, right? While mom was in the house, probably pops was out working or something like that. I mean, that's just kind of what the average household was like. There's a TV going with the news on it. So it's interesting you never heard about it.
Yeah. And I want to say I can sort of picture the bargain bins and I definitely remember some of the consequences and some of the causes, like as far as the crappy games. But as I understand, this was primarily in the U.S., like North America, especially. Like it didn't necessarily like spread all over the world, and you had these companies there in the United States that were kind of making decisions more to bring dollars to the stockholders than they were for quality, in innovation and those sorts of things in the games, and it just really ultimately led to a crash. And I think it's important to point out that it was a huge crash, but it didn't go below it didn't go below zero. Like the game, there still was $100 million gaming industry that was still there. That's nothing, to sneeze at, I would say. But it went from 32 billion in 1983, and by 1985 it was down to 100 million. As far as the actual size of the market. And I don't know if you ever saw one of those things like where somebody actually visually represents a billion. Like they'll take like grains of rice or something like that and actually show you that. One of the things I've discovered from seeing those is I really can't wrap my mind around that. Like when they'll show a pile of 1 million of them, and then they'll show a pile of 1 billion. And dude, it eats that million. Like it's like, why'd you even put that on the table?
Check that out.
Yeah.
That must help put things into perspective a little bit.
Yeah. When you get into the billions, like it just, I mean, it's like you have $100 million. You probably could lose that. You could kind of make some bad decisions but I think once you've got $3.2 billion, you'd have to really work at losing that, or running that somehow. So it blows my mind in one respect. Like I think one of the tie-ins here, like it's interesting that like you were looking at this game that you obviously were interested in, and it was $40, and you kind of thought about what you wanted to do with your money there. But I think about like that the games were around $40 in 1983, and like look at what we were getting, like versus what you're getting.
Yeah.
You weren't, there weren't going to be any like playing it online or anything like that. Like you were going to, go through that.
That's right, young guns. You weren't like, you weren't, your progress wasn't saving automatically. You weren't getting any like perks or skins or personalized kits with upgrades. You weren't, you definitely weren't opening no party chat unless the person was right next to you. And then there obviously wasn't a party chat. You just would talk to the person. Just kidding.
Yeah, dude.
But you weren't getting any of that.
No. I think it's surprising, like how much these games were back then. Every time I see it, I want to thank my parents like over and over, just like how much that stuff cost, and you see those comparisons. Like I feel like it's sort of like. Maybe multiplying it by 2.4 is a good estimate of today's dollars. Like when I saw like several of those comparisons or whatever. So
like inflation,
and
calculating inflation over time.
Yeah, you can basically double it.
I mean, I'm sorry, but I think that like when you look at the Atari 2600 or maybe the Intellivision, or even going forward to the Nintendo Entertainment System, for the time, that was. Maybe, at least in my mind, I remember looking at those simple games, and that was just as impactful for me as the games that we have now and that blow my mind.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's hard for me to tell, like, if it was oh shoot, my phone's ringing. I'm sorry, listeners. That's annoying. Hope you didn't hear that.
One thing I will say for our high school, they had a pretty decent economics class, and we had this thing where we had to develop what we called a widget. Like it's sort of like just a blank term for something that you're producing. And I will say, like, one of the takeaways that I had from it, it's counterintuitive. Sometimes charging less actually results in more profit. It at times, which is kind of unusual. You would think, like stick them for as much as you can and that kind of thing. And I think like scaling up becomes a huge issue. Like it's one thing to kind of, take orders and sort of fill them in your garage and things. But once you have to actually hire other people to do that, like the simulation that we did, we had this workbook that had it all set up, and it took you through that. And we also pretended like we had bought certain stocks, and we followed them as if we had, and saw like how much money we made and that kind of thing. It was a really, really decent economic class. So I think of that when you mentioned that. And yeah, I feel like, something I saw over and over in the research is that they felt like, when I say they, like the folks at Warner Communications and the powers that be that had, control over the CEOs of these companies, they sort of felt like maybe video games might be a fad that just sort of went by the wayside.
That has a huge part to do with it.
Yeah, so
it has to. That has to be an element.
Yeah, and I think just in business, like they get sort of rated quarterly, like especially if you're on the New York Stock Exchange and things like that, and you have to report those things. And I think it's sort of an attitude of like you're only as good as your last numbers. So they I think they saw like a prediction of a downturn, like where they were expecting like maybe 70% increase in sales, and they were only going to get 15, but it was still an increase. And suddenly this report caused people to start selling their stock, and that led, to a sort of chain of events and a domino effect that put a lot of this in motion.
Let's before we go any further, let me activate a cheat code here so that we can kind of lay a base of what we're actually getting at, so that all of these numbers and consequences and stuff make a little bit more sense. So I'm gonna activate a cheat code here. Left, right, up, down, A, B, select. Oh, what do you know? Wikipedia just popped up.
Bing. Right.
Reading from Wiki real quick, it says the video game crash of 1983, known as the Atari Shock in Japan, was a large-scale recession in the video game industry that occurred from 1983 to 1985, primarily in the United States. The crash was attributed to several factors, including market saturation in the number of game consoles and available games, many of which were of poor quality, as well as waning interest in console games in favor of personal computers. Home video game revenues peaked at around $3.2 billion in 1983, then fell to around $100 million by 1985, a drop of almost 97%. The crash abruptly ended what is retrospectively considered the second generation of console video gaming in North America. To a lesser extent, the arcade game market also weakened as the golden age of arcade video games came to an end, which we had an episode on about the golden age of arcade gaming. So definitely check that out if you like. But that's kind of that's what happened. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. So several factors, a 97% loss in the markets, and maybe not 100%, but seemed like a 97% loss of interest in gaming.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, I'm just being metaphorical there, but like
especially
it seemed like,
in the console, world.
It seemed like businesses and retails and CEOs concurred with what you were saying. They thought it was a fad. They thought it was something that was going to die and not come back. Right?
Yeah. I think they also had when we were looking at Atari, they talked about having sort of the console as a record player of sorts, where they kept doing these cartridges, and I think in reality what's happened is we get a new console every few years, and so they were having to come to terms with that their initial investment I don't think was really going to last as long as maybe they had hoped, and just more bad news for stockholders, and man, it definitely put it. And I think my mind goes to Atari when I talk about this, like Warner Communications and Atari. Like I do feel like Atari was one of the key players, if not the key player overall, and saw the greatest impact from this. So, the fact that they were owned by Warner Communications and there were a number of repercussions that sort of led down from that. It looks like, as we mentioned, there's several factors. One of them was the saturation.
It seems like there were no exclusivity contracts. Like all of the business being done for the suppliers that supply the technology to make consoles. They were kind of catering to everyone, it seemed like, and publishing, everyone was getting catered to. It didn't seem like there was any exclusivity in these agreements taking place. Mm-hmm. At least that's what it seemed like. Why? Because there were all these different consoles coming out, and not all of them were with corporations that had any experience in creating quality video games or consoles. It was merely, let's jump onto this fad and make as much money as we can off of it before it dies.
Yeah.
Right. So all of a sudden we see all of these different consoles coming out. Odyssey and Television, ColecoVision. Atari had a whole gamma of consoles. There was the Fairchild. What was it? Fairchild F.
The Vectrex.
Yeah, just a whole bunch of different consoles coming out. Most of them sucked. I say that just based off of what I've seen in researching these topics. I wasn't around back then, but apparently they mostly sucked. And even within the consoles that didn't suck, like the Atari 2600, that didn't mean that all of the games were good. There were a lot of games that also were just really bad quality, that were pushed out extremely fast, or that didn't get any TLC, or that were intended to be great games, but due to the the company brass or corporate brass, they were pushed out before they needed to be. A huge example of this being E.T. I don't know if we should jump ahead to that, but just finishing off that first factor, saturation of the market. There were way too many consoles out there, way too many games. And one of the biggest failures, I think, or bad decision making, one of the bad choices that was made by Atari, for example, was, I think it was with E.T. actually, is they predicted it was going to be so good, or it was going to go, or was it Pac-Man?
On Pac-Man, I want to say they had already,
Pac-Man,
they made 2 million more cartridges than they
exactly, and that's just bad. That's just what can I say? I'm not in these I'm not a CEO of a super successful like multi-billion-dollar business, but which was Atari, and it was it also like, I don't know, multi-million, multi-billion, whatever. It was extremely successful business. So what do I know? But there were only 10 million Ataris out there, and they made 12 million cartridges for this game. And I think it was Pac-Man. It may have been. I think what actually happened is that they did it in both cases. They made way too many cartridges, more than there were actual units to play it. They were thinking that the game was going to do so well that people would want to buy Ataris to play it, and it backfired hard. I mean, it was still, I think, was it? Gosh, man, I feel so underprepared for you, Chuck. I'm sorry, but one of those games was the best seller, even though it sucked.
Pac-Man.
Thank you.
And
yeah, I'm sorry.
Like one of the hiccups in their giddy up here was that the way they worked this deal out, like with places like JCPenney and Sears, is that they got a percentage of what was sold. It wasn't as if, like, say they, produced bushels of corn and, had a deal with Walmart to sell corn, and they showed up with 500 bushels and got paid for 500 bushels, and if that corn goes bad after that, like, that's Walmart's problem. But they had a deal where they were getting a percentage of the sales, and they I can see why you'd want to be ready. Like, if sales were good, you'd want to have plenty of cartridges, and if it's costing you $5 to make these and you're selling them for 40, you can withstand having a few extra, but not 2 million extra. And then when things go, I think they ended up in a situation where, like, these didn't sell at the retailers, and then when they went to return them and get their money back, a lot of these companies couldn't pay that money back, so they folded, and it sort of was another domino that fell in this chain of events. But again, it's financial stuff. Like, as far as you and I, like it really just comes down to how much of our coin we have to put out for that system, that console, or that game. Like,
yeah, man.
There is.
Yeah. Well, and I think that was going back to what you were just saying. I don't want to forget this, but it ties into the saturation thing. Like, if I'm a toy store in, let's just say Springfield, I don't know, Oregon or something. I'm sure there is a Springfield. I think there is. Mm-hmm. But just some random town. And I got a toy store there. It's the 80s. Video games are blowing up, or consoles. And originally I have a deal with, let's say, Atari. And they sell me 100... they give me 100 units to start selling, and it goes well, and I give them their percentage, and it's like, great. And then they come back after that and say, well, do you want another 100? And I'm like, you know what? I actually have an agreement now with Mattel, and they're releasing the Intellivision or whatever. Or they got the Intellivision. I actually want to sell 50 of those now. So they Atari effectively just lost 50 sales with me. And the more that domino effect, like you're saying, the more that happens, and the more consoles and the more companies come out, me as a business owner, or as a toy store owner or something like that, I'm going to consider those other, maybe they're offering me a better deal. Maybe Mattel offers me a better deal that costs me less, but I can still make the same amount or at the sale because it's a higher retail price. But effectively, the more business I take on with these companies to sell consoles and video games, the less one particular company gets my attention and my money. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's only so much pie.
That was kind of long-winded.
There's only so much pie out there, and suddenly Atari's section of it. I think you had Mattel come in with the Intellivision that we've talked about. Yeah, I think Intellivision had about 20% of the market at one point there. So
yeah, they did do pretty damn good.
Yeah, and Coleco, like you say, they came in with the license for Donkey Kong, and it was super popular. And they also, like, part of just how of a Wild West era that we were in, at one point they made an adapter for the ColecoVision that allowed you to play Atari 2600 games.
Exactly, man. What is up with that? Can you imagine something like that today?
No.
That's never going to happen.
No.
Negative. No, senor.
Not on any not this side of the border, I can tell you. But it it's kind of, I think about those emulators, like they kind of do that to some degree, like not exactly the same, but yeah, as far as there being some kind of adapter where I play Xbox games on a PlayStation, I can bet, I'll be dead before that ever happens. Like there's just no
or someone's gonna come knocking on the door.
yeah.
It's the PlayStation police.
Yeah.
Put them up. He's fine.
But I'm always blown away, like how smart some folks are out there, though, that can figure these things out. I would say for it to ever be like mass produced like that and sold, as a retail item, you can bet it's never going to happen. So yeah, it definitely was a flooded market. But I guess one of the things I can say, I was alive during this time, and of that list of consoles that were supposedly flooding this market, like I can tell you in my little corner of the world, the market really was fairly small. I didn't see a lot of those like the Vectrex and the Fairchild F like at our vendors. You saw the Atari, you saw the Intellivision, and I can say that I at least knew friends of mine that had the Odyssey or ColecoVision. So I think to me those were the big four that were really dominating the times or whatever, because it blows my mind like just how long it takes for a lot of these things to get it, because as this thing ends, like when the we'll get to a little bit later on, but as far as like when the actual Nintendo comes out and sort of saves the day as far as the home console market goes, it takes a while for it to actually get to North America and especially to my corner of the world. I was kind of surprised when I really think about it. It was probably 87, I would say, before I got my hands on a.
That was a good year.
Yeah. You came into right on time, right when the crash was ending for reals. But
well, and look, another element to this is that while the market's getting saturated, and it's just like a snowball effect. It's just there's an accumulation of things happening, and just persisting and persisting. Because while the saturation was happening, it's not getting saturated with great games. It's not getting saturated with quality, because if it was, it would become more robust. More and more people would be gaming, because as we've seen in our research, and I think we've perhaps mentioned, especially in the arcade episode, believe it or not, this wasn't limited to just little kids and teenagers. Like a whole gamma of people were playing these games and enjoying them, especially arcade games. They weren't releasing like quality games here, so they were effectively releasing disappointments. So it lost the public lost confidence in these video games. It got to a point where there were like, not only were people not buying games anymore because there were so many. Not only were less games getting purchased of a particular company because there were more options, it got to a point where they just weren't even buying games anymore from any company because they were so bad.
Yeah. Just to kind of frame up, like I think we're looking at reasons why, this happened. And we talked about the flooded console market and sort of folks losing like publishing and quality control. And that sort of leads to this lack of consumer confidence. There's sort of two things in one, but I think some of the interesting stories in there are just how crappy some of the games were, like you're saying. I think there was a novelty to it too, that the market was so new, and we saw a lot of things about the future. Like by 2022, we were supposed to be in these jet cars, like the Jetsons and things. So we had a lot of hope.
You're not in a jet car yet?
No,
unfortunately, I got one out here under a palm tree. I had it parked next to the.
Well, and the Jetsons had that thing like where when he got out of bed, he basically got on this conveyor belt and it got him ready. Like it brushed his teeth and put his suit on and put a cup of coffee in his hand. Like, hell, I'm waiting for that. I don't necessarily need the jet car. Like I need that. Like, but yeah,
Roger that.
I think you saw a lot of poor quality clones and just all kinds of things. And you can't. There are certain games that get mentioned at this point, like every time, and those the Pac-Man game comes up.
Pac-Man, man. Poor quality, Pac-Man.
Absolutely. And as I understand, like the story there goes, is the guy that basically was doing, creating this game, when he showed up with it, he was showing them the prototype, and they published to make it out, in time for I guess the Christmas season or some upcoming sales sort of opportunity. And that wasn't what he wanted, but he did pocket the money. He did make a bunch of money because I think they sold a bunch of copies of it. But he got paid. Sorry for stopping you, but this is fresh in my mind. I remember this part. I don't remember the guy's name though, but the game creators, they got paid for creating the game, regardless of how it went for the company, regardless of how it went for Atari, let's say. Mm-hmm. For in this case with Pac-Man, but for the sale. So whether or not Atari sold well, that game developer, he got paid. Yeah.
And walked away like,
and
gracias.
I feel like one of the things we're seeing is just some of the realities of capitalism. Like it doesn't always go the way we want. Like that, that Cinderella story, of the mom and pop store. Sometimes it goes away. And as much as I love that story, when it comes down to me spending my money, I'm probably going to go to Walmart and buy it where it's cheaper. I mean, sometimes I make decisions like that are, more with my heart or whatever, but there's only so much dough, dude.
I don't think it has anything to do with capitalism, me personally. I just think they made bad business choices, assuming that the video game emergence was just going to be a fad. Mm-hmm. Because it didn't completely die. The owner and CEO of Nintendo were able to successfully identify. In fact, I think it was the owner, the main man. He identified and made a bet. I wouldn't say he identified it. He bet on that the U.S. market was not dead. It wasn't just a fad. It was just dormant. Like he didn't believe that the interest was gone. He just believed that none of the companies had fulfilled their commitment to deliver a quality game and product. Like he didn't think it was a fad. He thought it was just kind of dormant, and all they needed was to find a way to get their Nintendo or their Famicom into the U.S. market, because kids were still going to the arcade religiously, man.
Yeah, I think I remember what you're.
So he was like, "No, it's not a fad." Like all these guys that made these bad decisions, not getting exclusive publishing rights, not making quality games, releasing way too soon before these projects were done. Those were all bad choices made around making quick money. Why? Because they thought it was a fad. And our boy from Nintendo was like, "No, man, this thing is going to go for the long run."
I remember reading about that, and it was like he felt like that just getting it into the actual hands of the players, like the consumers, would prove him right.
To do.
Yeah,
baby, that's
he
all
was
he
right.
needed to do.
He was so
he got
right.
it in. He sure as hell got one into the hands of my homie Johnny G from and I loved going over there and deciding between the trampoline and the Nintendo. Our listeners know this story already. I won't get into it again, but he certainly had one, man, and it caught my love. Duck hunt.
Yeah, I definitely want to save that for the end. I think there's some awesome stories in there, like of Nintendo coming back in it, and I'm super thankful for it. But I'm curious, like what when you were, again looking at these factors of why this happened, like under the sort of loss of quality control and loss of confidence there, what struck you like the most as like the worst game you saw or the most unusual thing you saw, or some examples of that? Because I think
the worst is E.T., man. Like when you see a gameplay of E.T., I don't even know what I'm looking at. It's like I mean, it's so bad. There's just these like big green diamonds on the screen that you got to walk past, and there's like a weird dude in a lab coat or something that kind of like randomly follows you. It's kind of creepy.
Going around
actually.
picking up Reese's Pieces like the whole time. Is
what?
Yeah. He loved Reese's Pieces, and dude.
So do I.
It is like, and they
so
paid.
Bad.
I want to say it's between 20 and 25 million they paid for that license.
Yeah, exactly, man, and just bad calls.
But I understand they gave that dude like 6 weeks to get that thing out. Like,
That's right.
Like the entire deal, dude. Like how?
No. Yes, I'm sorry, but I had to stop because I just want to emphasize on how huge this part is that you're mentioning. He had 6 weeks to come up with a format, come up with a kind of like a plot, come up with give the game design, come up with the manufacturing, come up with the distribution and the publishing and the advertisement and the actual release of the game. 6 weeks to do all of that.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, no, we need to have a draft of the game in 6 weeks. Oh gosh, 6 weeks for a draft. Okay, that's kind of, we need a little bit more time with that, but I'll make it happen. No. 6 weeks from square one to release.
And I can almost see like one thing I do remember is watching this movie and being a kid and like having this crush on Drew Barrymore. Like I loved everything about this movie, including her. We were exactly the same age, so.
Yeah, I'm sure you watched it for the plot.
Yeah. So I think they just thought that whatever game they put out there was going to sell because people love this movie, and as long as it didn't just eternally, rot, like it would have been okay.
Gosh, man, it's just when you see the gameplay of this game, guys. Like, if you haven't seen it yet, go on YouTube, please, and watch it. And you can't just help but just go like, wow, these guys really just did not care. The brass, the CEOs, and the decision makers. Like, you can tell that they literally had never played a video game before, didn't understand, had no comprehension of what a young gamer or whatever age gamer was looking for with these cartridges and games. Like, they just had no idea, man. Because it's horrible. It's such a bad game.
I saw worse, though. I feel like I know I mentioned to you like obviously we don't want to go too explicit or anything here, but that was part of the loss of control of the publishing. Is that one of the things is I think you had some X-rated games that came out, but I saw one that was kind of on the border of all that was called Beat 'em and Eat 'em. And,
oh God,
dude, it was horrible.
Beat 'em and eat 'em.
Did you see that one?
No. I'm sorry, I didn't.
Pretty much the gameplay is like there's a guy like way at the top of the screen holding, let's just say, I'm going to use the word jackhammer. He's got a jackhammer.
Is that what it is, or is it like is it his own penis or something?
Pretty much, yeah.
He's holding his own self.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of it.
Is that what it seems
you've
like?
Seen yeah, just kids, drawing on the wall or something at the locker room or on the lock, you're just a couple of circles in a shaft there.
A little hammerhead shark. Yeah.
He's got
gotcha.
that. And then way down below him are these ladies, and they've got their mouth open, and they're like,
oh my God,
they're trying to catch this, that he's shooting at them. Like, that's the whole point of the game. And
this is an Atari game.
Yeah, Atari 2600.
Jeez.
Yeah, dude. He
oh my gosh,
he was
man.
jackhammering them out up there at the top of the screen, and they were like running to catch him, and
that's fucking gnarly,
dude.
Sorry,
I have to say, like, I don't know, man. When I was, when you get that puberty age, like, those hormones are raging, dude. I can't imagine like if they let me leave. I mean, I was already watching Cinemax like during the middle of the night, and we didn't have Cinemax. Like, it's something I want to point out. Like, we didn't have the channel, but if you went there, like, if people of a certain age know exactly what I'm talking about, like, you could watch it. like it kind of, yeah, it was bad for your eyes, I'm sure. Like it had this yeah, like encrypting of sorts that caused a bunch of lines to be in the screen, but you could still see what was going on. Like,
jeez, Chuck.
Cinemax After Dark. Yeah, I was already in there. So I imagine if I'd got my hand on this, Beat 'em and Eat 'em.
Hot tamale.
Yeah, dude. Lord of mercy. Yeah, so I think
we can. That's a drop in quality of video game.
Yeah. I mean, it was sort of the Wild West is kind of how I think about it, and everybody was getting it in, So
Well, and I think another thing that happened, and it definitely contributed to hard times for these companies, which ipso facto resulted in the crash. This definitely was an element, and that was that there was a point along the line there, I think it was 78 or 79, where some employees of Atari were effectively pissed off because they weren't getting any credit for their video game making, and they left the company. I think it was 4 dudes. I don't remember their names, but they leave Atari and they go and form the very famous Activision, and they start making games for the Atari. And of course, Atari going like, hey, we don't want this to happen because they're going to sell games for our system and we're not going to be able to make any money off of them. They go and sue, and long story short, they lose, and it's ruled in court that, you know, anyone can go and make games for these companies. And basically from that moment onward, it's the beginning of third-party publishers third-party game developers for consoles and stuff. And what that means is that Activision, for example, could go and create a video game like Pitfall, which was a top seller, and Atari didn't get anything for that.
They had to pay royalties. They did have to pay royalties. Like Atari didn't lose the case completely. Like, it was ruled that they had to pay royalties, but ultimately that legitimized it. You know, it's kind of like, you know,
my bad.
It's like, you know, this is okay. Like we'll pay the royalties is what, you know, I think ultimately folks decided.
But I'm not going to say that what I saw and what I researched was the true story of the facts. But what I found was that there were a lot of games getting created by third parties that were being sold, that were for Atari to play on Atari, that had zero, like they weren't getting any money for those games. So I don't know, something like that. But the point is that also had an impact on these companies, and contributed to the crash.
Yeah, I think, you know, definitely when you think of that model, like sort of where they were just going to get paid, you know, even if you did as a third party develop this game, you had to still get it out like to JCPenney or Sears, and you know, a lot of those deals for those folks were bad. And as far as like I feel about, I would say 95% sure that's exactly what happened with that Activision deal. But as far as if there weren't some pirate, you know, type folks out there, you know, doing some things that slipped under the radar, I certainly can't say that. But
I mean, just think about it. It had to have happened. Like, because they ruled that Atari cannot stop Activision or anyone from creating games for their console. That's basically what they said. Mm-hmm. So regardless of what the agreement or settlement was between, or ruling, a reward was between Activision and Atari particularly, I'm definitely, there were other developers out there creating games for, well, as of that ruling, for any console.
Yeah, I think part of that is just that it wasn't that complicated of a technology, and also like there was the want and need, you know, folks.
I mean, Purina, was it Purina or
was Purina? Chase the Chuck wagon?
Yeah, Purina, the dog and cat food company, made a video game.
Yeah,
I mean, that's how bad the saturation got, man. That's how bonkers and overwhelmingly saturated that the market was. I think there was also like an oatmeal company that made a video game.
Yeah,
like there were, it was bad, man.
Oh yeah, and you know, it's not unheard of. Like I want to say Burger King's made a video game like for the Xbox 360 at some point, but yeah, it just doesn't really sing out quality to me. But yeah, you talk about loss of confidence. Like, what other factors were in this? Did you run across much about like home computers, like kind of coming onto the scene at this point as well, like taking over some of that?
That's what a lot of sources that I was following up on for this episode said, but I don't know about that. I don't think that I didn't spot anything in particular that I would say, oh yeah, that makes sense, that the computer, that PCs and stuff would be having this impact on the sales of game consoles, because I feel like they were doing the damage themselves. There wasn't anything that PC was or that these PCs like Intellivision or the Commodore 64, the Apple II, et cetera, I don't know. I don't know if you have a different perspective on that, but I don't think that they really, I mean, maybe a minuscule percentage of impact.
I think they took a small bite of that pie. Like there were probably households that, were at the cost of all this, we're going to do, especially if they went the computer route, they weren't going to also buy, the latest console. And maybe that took a little away from the console market and some of these companies that we've been talking about, especially Atari. But I agree. I think it's important at this point, like we point out, like some of our research, I think it's something that you shared with me, kind of pushes back on all of these things that we just mentioned, as to say, that they weren't, that, a lot of people say that PCs sort of took, a big share of the market and that's what stopped it. But they're kind of like showed a graph that it really didn't take that much when you really look at it. And it even showed, how much of the market it takes today. And when they mentioned the flooded console market, they, kind of as I mentioned, like, yeah, all those consoles existed, but I think the ones that actually made it into the major nationwide retail stores were fairly limited. And yeah, they probably did take a little bit of that market. But, and like those games, like as far as the game made by Purina, it wasn't exactly like that was competing with E.T. there at Walmart on the shelves. That's something you had to order from Purina. It was more like a gimmick to like sell dog food than it was a, let me, compete, make the next Space Invaders here or anything like that. And I think the point of this guy's whole point, that it was retail glut that caused it. And, a lot of those economic factors that we talked about earlier, like how that CEOs were really just making decisions for stockholders, and it wasn't about like the longevity and quality of video games. And it just, they had a hit, and they wanted to keep on hitting and to keep on seeing it go up, and it really, just doesn't really play out well for them right there in that short term.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It didn't play out for them at all.
Yeah.
You were just giving me another thought. I'm having another brain fart. Anyways. Yeah, I mean, all you got to do is look at the numbers and not also look at the numbers, but not also take them too seriously, like when analyzing these things, because like per year there's a percentage of the video game market, and per year or per quarter, depending how you break it down, there's going to be any given company, which at large was Atari, that has the majority percentage of that market, and then there's someone in second place and someone in third place, and you can look at it and assign kind of like the blame in those percentages, but I don't think that would be necessarily accurate, because just like if Atari has like 90% or 80% of the market, that just means that there's going to be however so many other companies trying to get in to take some of that market. And if we look at it that way, then, well, just because like we can't look at Atari's share in the market and be like, well, because they have such a big share means that no one's buying any other of these consoles or games. I don't think it should be looked at that way. It just means that there's that many other consoles and games trying to take a chunk of that percentage, oversaturating the market with poor quality.
Yeah.
And yes, there's definitely people out there buying these other systems at large, to the sad fact to find out that they're poor quality. Like if I'm back in the 80s or whatever, me as a young kid, I'm not going to know that Atari has this huge share of the market. I'm just going to see the fact that an Atari costs this much, but there's this other console from another company that I may or may not have heard of, and their console goes for $50 less, but still has a lot of the same games, because there was this huge case with Activision, and now all the games can go on all of it, whatever. So I'm going to look at it from that perspective as a young kid or young punk back in the day, you know? Mm-hmm. And the more kids like me that see the other console for $50 cheaper than the Atari 2600, there's going to be lots of thousands and tens of thousands of kids that are going to take that path as well, just to spend a little bit less money to play the same games. And the more that happens, the more that explosion within these companies happens. So like going back to the 90% example, if Atari has that 90% of the share of the market share, and then these issues start snowballing, it's gonna explode for them that much more than. Oops, sorry, I bumped the microphone. If they have that 90%, it's gonna be that much more painful for them.
Yeah.
When it blows up, you know.
Yeah, and their expectations are
blow
incredibly high. Their shareholders are expecting big returns like last year, and you know they're expecting this thing to go to the moon, and all of a sudden you find out, you know, some other people are going to be on board and we can't make it to the moon.
Yeah.
Yeah, the spaceship's weighing too much now. Yeah. Yeah. I want to say that the theory is that, you know, this competition should breed quality, like that, you know, but one of my fears is that there were gaming developers that sort of, you know, didn't have the ability to weather this, that went away, that, you know, if they had existed into our current times, we might, you know, be enjoying that. But
well, and it seems like in that 1983 to 1985 period, or even before, of course. Yeah, no, particularly before. It seems like the only folks that understood what gamers wanted, or what game quality was these 4 dudes from Activision that bailed. Because, I mean, they went on to create some pretty quality games like Pitfall. Mm-hmm. And the folks at Nintendo that were kind of like a dormant, you know, a nesting bear or hibernating bear ready to just come out and just freaking tear up the scene, man. They were like, mm-hmm. They were keeping keeping the hood covered while working on their stuff, the Famicom, before unleashing that and just sweeping the world with Nintendo.
I just felt like it appears like although they do make good business decisions, like their heart is in it somehow. Like where,
man, Japanese, man, their heart is in everything.
Yeah.
I got a Toyota. I can feel it. Like I can feel a bunch of dudes and dudettes' hearts like that built that. You know, I can feel the heartbeat in that car, man. Like they put quality into everything. Damn.
Yeah. I feel that it's almost like they have an abundance mindset in towards the video game market, where these CEOs had like a scarcity mindset, and you know, they believe in the product, you know, and not necessarily like getting just derailed by the circumstances of the time. Like they believe this shit's really fun, like, you know, and entertaining.
Well, and I think they could see like that the way technology was advancing, that it would be foolish to think that video games were not going to be a part of the future.
Yeah.
Like they could clearly see that, you know, these it started with calculators, you know. It started with pinball machines, and then calculators, and then the first console, and then like it was very clear that there was something happening. And where technology was going. So I think they just kind of identified that, and they're like, no, this isn't a fad.
I can see why you would think that things were a fad, because I have to say in my lifetime, and I'm sure in theirs as well, like attention spans have decreased. Like I would say, you know, my grandmother would tell me about, you know, playing games of Mumbledy Peg and all these things that require a ton of patience and imagination, you know, and I could see how, you know, and I think about today, like folks, I want to say, like they say we have like 8 seconds is the average attention span of a human being going right now, and goldfish are working with 9. So,
wow.
yeah. Go watch an old movie. Like the scene will stay the same for like 24 seconds or something, and you feel like like you've already done 3 different things. Like I've looked at my phone, like, you know, it's just like, are we ever going to
No wonder our YouTube channel isn't doing that good. There's no video.
Yeah, I'm not kidding you. Like we literally, like when we start this episode, we have like 8 seconds to get folks' attention, you know, and like I probably should just be getting naked right off the bat. Like,
yeah, no.
Oh yeah, right, yeah. Save it for the OnlyFans. No. Well, you know, we're kind of jumping around here, but like what we're talking about, folks, here are sort of the long-term impacts and consequences and after effects of this crash. And, you know, we've kind of gone over a lot of the reasons that it happened and you know, what we just sort of jumped into there was one of the long-term impacts is Japanese dominance. Like, you know, those consoles we're working with today, like the, you know, what is it? The Nintendo Switch and the PlayStation 5, I believe are both in Japan, right?
Their headquarters?
Yeah, they're like they come from Sony and Nintendo,
Oh, yeah.
which are both,
yes, sir.
you know, Japanese products and
Roger.
I guess the Xbox. What is it? Would we consider that?
Xbox is Microsoft.
Yeah, would we consider that an American product at this point?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yep.
So we've got one.
Is that a hammy?
Old Bill Gates. He's the Hemi of the console market here.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, yeah, Japanese dominance. Like you know, I think things didn't really go as badly for them. I heard, like, saw some evidence they called it Atari Shock, and like you say, they really just saw it as a hiccup in the North American market and really an opportunity for them to jump in there and get some good products out. And
yeah, man, because there was definitely a lull. The numbers, you know, it went from I think above 3 billion or something like that, down to 100 million. So that was obviously one of the consequences of this crash, was just a huge market loss. Lots of these companies went under. Atari didn't go under. I mean, they would eventually go under, but
it got sold off. I think Warner Brothers sold them to Jack Trammell, and they sort of focused on arcade games, I think, for a bit, and maybe home computers as well. Like, I
mean, apart from that, what are some of the consequences other than the money? Well, you know, you mentioned the Atari taking like convoys of cartridges to what is it, Alamogordo, New Mexico, and just like dumping them in a landfill and then cementing them in or something like that. And I think I actually mentioned that in a previous episode. I don't remember which one it was exactly, but I think I accidentally said the Mojave Desert, which I don't think that's the same desert. So. The accurate intel is it's in the Alamogordo.
Yeah, I've actually been,
which means fat soul. By the way,
no kidding.
Yeah,
I guess I should have been able to figure that out. Yeah, I know the Gordo part, but I didn't know the word for soul. What Alma is?
Alma.
Yeah, I like that. You know, I want to say around 2000, 2001 or so. I was working for the Cherokee Hot Shots, and we got sent to some fires there in Cloudcroft, which is just over from Alamogordo, and we ended up there. And man, I tell you, if you wanted to get rid of something that you'd never see again, like that's the place. Like you got the White Sands Missile Range out there, and I definitely remember having.
Anything you need to say or confess? Or? What else were you doing out there with them hot shots?
I will point out that the Lincoln National Forest is down there where Smokey the Bear comes from. Like the original Smokey the Bear was actually a little bear cub that was rescued on a fire there on the Lincoln National Forest. And so there is a real Smokey the Bear, and that's where he came from. I mean, like you live in Mexico. I mean, dude, this is New Mexico, son. I mean, think about like... Think about everything that Mexico, and then just like add something to that. I mean, it's the New Mexico, dude. There's something. It's a wild place. You got the Painted Desert. You got like tons of Native Americans that, like in history there, that just blew my mind. I worked in a town. That particular trip, I was living in Tennessee, but at some other point, I went and lived in Grants, New Mexico, and worked on an engine there. it's probably about 5-6 hours north of Alamogordo, and I want to say we got sent down to a place called Las Cruces at one point, probably the closest I got to there. But you got the Apache Indians, you got the Zuni, like there's just, I mean, it's called the land of fire and ice because you have like you'll have mountains that go up so high that there's snow year round, but it's a mystical place, dude. It could definitely go on forever about New Mexico, but it kind of blows my mind. Like, how did they get them cartridges over there? I would have pictured, like I understood that they weren't selling, and they were in that situation where the stores didn't sell them, and it wasn't like the stores had bought them from them, so they returned them, and they had them sitting in a warehouse that was costing them money. But I pictured that warehouse being in California somewhere or something. Like, you got to be pretty mad to get head down Magordo with them cartridges, I think, or making sure that nobody's going to see it. Like, you know.
Yeah, it's hard. Well, it's hard to say. Like, I don't know what the legalities around that were. Like, if they were allowed to do that or not, or if it was like this big scandal. I think when we read it online and when we see it in videos and it's mentioned and brought up that they actually did that, it kind of comes off as if it was like a big scandal or something, or if it was in the news, or like if they were not supposed to do that. But I don't remember actually ever hearing anyone specifically say that they weren't supposed to do that. Like, I think probably what they did was they probably looked at, like, the overhead for these warehouses where they had all this product or something. Said, okay, it's costing us this much money. It's not viable. We're not going to sell these games. No one's buying them. So they probably just looked at, like, some land or something in this place, Alamogordo, where you say there's no one there. So land was probably dirt cheap. Per square meter or per yard or per foot, however they did it. Bought a bunch of land, dug a hole, shipped them down there, buried them, cemented them over, forgot about it. and then put the expenses against taxes.
Yeah. I know it gets mentioned as like regardless of the circumstances and the legend or whatever, but it kind of stands out as like a real telling scene of the time, like sort of a visualization of this is how screwed up things got. You know, they paid $25 million for this license and made crap, and here's what happens, and it's embarrassing.
Yeah, man, it's just with the case of Atari, they just got like a big loss after big loss after big loss. And then the negatives were just amounting, like other companies are coming out. Other publishers are making games. Our units aren't selling. The game didn't do well. We just spent all this money on licenses, but no one bought the game. Event after event after event, and it just probably seemed like there was no light at the end of the tunnel for some of these companies when all of a sudden in 1983, the metaphorical poo hit the fan.
Yeah, and I see it as like just one of the realities of business. I mean, I think at some point you got to cut your losses, and it's like, we're not renting this warehouse anymore, and he's got to go somewhere. And I think there was a documentary in 2014 about this whole scenario. I'd like to watch it at some point. It would be interesting to. I actually looked just a little bit about Alamogordo online, and immediately memories came back for sure of that place. I didn't see any with the hipster jacket, but I saw a lot of elk there, like on your cup.
No, there's only one of those, man. He's right here with me.
He's a much more classy elk than the ones I saw out there, but
I think he's got Ray-Bans on.
Dude. The time I got to spend with the Native Americans there, though, dude, is some of the happiest, like funnest time of my life. Like I really felt like that was a unique experience I got to be a part of, and would recommend anybody go to New Mexico. Maybe not Alamogordo right away. Work your way up to that. But
what happened after, Chuck? How did the light at the end of the tunnel become the light, not at the end of the tunnel, and just the light?
Me personally, I feel like we were saved by R.O.B the robot.
I think, according to what you shared with me and what we saw there online, was he did save it. the gaming industry.
They pulled a fast one, kind of like used him as the Trojan horse of sorts.
The Trojan bot.
Yeah. and another thing that blows my mind is we did this research, I'd never heard of Rob the Robot.
Dude, neither had I, man. I'd never seen one before. I never heard of it. The only thing that I must admit is that when you sent me the article and I saw Rob the Robot, he did look familiar.
Yeah.
Like his little design and his cute eyes. And
they pretty much swiped it from that movie Short Circuit, like that was popular at the same time.
Damn, man. What a movie.
It was
all of them.
I don't remember like a lot of specifics of the movie, but like I think that video brought it up, and then I realized why. I had the same feeling like you described. I recognized him somehow and was like, how the hell did I miss this somehow? But
yeah,
but yeah, just to frame it up for our listeners, I gotta say what we're talking about here is Rob the Robot was a product that Nintendo, when they went to market and their console after this crash, they're coming into this U.S. market. It's almost like they feel like if they use the word console, it's going to flop, that people have lost confidence in that whole market. So they dub the console that they're going to put out, because it is a console, let's face it, they call it the Nintendo Entertainment System. They include a light gun and a few other peripherals, one of which is Rob the Robot, your robot operating buddy. Like,
that's exactly what I was just looking for.
Who doesn't need a buddy, dude? It reminded me of like when we go on a field trip in grade school. You had your buddy, man. I mean, it's like we used to walk from our school to places, and you had your buddy. It was like your battle buddy. Like, if something happened to one of you, it was supposed to happen to both of you.
Yeah. You go into the dairy plant, you got a buddy. You go into the wildlife exhibition, you got a buddy.
And what I'm going to tell you,
you're going down to the YMCA, you got a buddy.
Yeah, and it was a pretty even mix of girls and boys in our class. So, but it was uneven. So sometimes your buddy was a girl, and I always wanted mine to be this one girl that I really liked, and you had to hold hands on the way over there.
They never are, Chuck. They never are. The one that you want to be partnered with you for the assignment or for the field trip or for the bus ride, they never are. And they always get assigned to that, they almost get assigned to that, that person that you hate.
That SOB, yeah.
Oh God, they put up with, damn it.
No. I do think it went my way one time. We were going to visit like a graveyard of sorts, and I got to hold hands with this girl. I won't mention her name, but yeah, it was.
How old were you? Of course, you're not mentioning her name. You weirdo.
We were kids. We were both kids. This is
that's fine.
Age appropriate, but yeah. So like I say, they the reason we call this the Trojan horse. We've all heard that story. I think in. What are those wars where that happened in? They basically.
Oh well, those were that was the, I think it was the Trojan War, but basically, Greece, they were not able to get past the walls. They weren't able to penetrate into the city of Troy, and very cleverly, they are like, okay, well, let's just have the whole Greek navy take everyone out, act as if they're leaving, and we'll leave this giant, huge Trojan horse. I think the horse had like a lot of significance, I think, to the Trojans. Mm-hmm. And they're like, let's build this huge horse. We'll hide our like best, most lethal combat, infantry soldiers inside the horse. And we'll leave it as a gift, as a respect, as like a token of like, wow, you
good game.
You won. You win.
GG.
Good game. Yeah, GG. Yeah. GG there, Paris. I think his name was Paris, one of the main, Paris and Hector. Yeah, GG's, Hector. You win. All right, see you later.
You got us.
And then they leave the horse. It's filled with soldiers. The main army starts to, quote unquote, leave on the ships back to Greece. The Trojans wheel it in through the gates. They wait until nightfall. The soldiers leave the Trojan horse, open the gates, and then the returning Greek army just goes in and fucks shit up.
It was popping out the
They win.
horse. Yeah.
It starts popping off in there. You know, it becomes Battle Royale.
Surprise, motherfucker.
Hi, hi. Hi, hi.
Yeah. Oh, that had to feel pretty
We're
good.
back.
It's like you should have saw your faces. Like, yeah, it's a great story. Well, so can you tie?
So how does Rob tie into this story?
Yeah, so it's almost like they didn't want to call it a console, so they said entertainment system. And like I say, there was always this sort of underlying, you know, like you go back and look at architecture from the 60s, like that mid-century, like we thought like what the future was going to be, like this modernism of sorts, and robots have always been a big part of that. And like it was kind of touted as a robot that could play the game with you.
Yeah, but before you get into that, just so that the listeners understand why we're even mentioning this dude, this little robot, Rob, our buddy, it's because the leadership of Nintendo, particularly the CEO, and I don't remember the names, but the CEO and the owner had identified, again, we already mentioned this, but they had identified that what happened in the U.S. was just bad business decisions, and they didn't believe that it was a fad. They believed that the gaming interest was still there and that these guys had just made bad choices, which turned out to be the case. But they also knew that, like you mentioned moments ago, the confidence was gone. So the reason that they came up with this R.O.B idea or this peripheral, like the reason they even had this idea was because they were trying to think of a way to get back into the market, to sideswipe that missing confidence and get their product into the hand of the gamer. And they knew so that's now tying back into what you were saying, segueing back into that. That's why they were doing these things that you are referring to. That there was the reason why they were doing this was because they still had faith in the gamers and they wanted to get their product into the U.S. And they had to come up with an idea. They had to come up with a plan. Mm-hmm. And that plan manifested in what you're describing. So I just wanted to mention that just to
I definitely
just
appreciate
explain
that.
why.
You definitely framed it back up real good for us there, and it kind of or really well, and it R.O.B was sort of the Trojan horse. Like they were actually selling a console, but they sold it as if like it was this all-encompassing system that, you know, allowed you to do this light gun game and have like this home robot that, you know, it really gave the impression that was going to do some pretty incredible things.
Yeah, they're like, check out this robot. His name is Rob. Oh, and it comes with this.
Yeah,
like that was kind of the tone.
Yeah, and
yeah,
and it seems like it like say all the I forget exactly what it was called at that time, but like the E3 of the day or whatever, the robot.
It was called I'm sorry, Jack. It was called CES, Consumer Electronics Show.
Yeah, they went to that thing, and the robot kind of took center stage at that. Like the display even had the big, you know, large head of the robot, and like I say, just sort of that short circuit sort of look to it, and I can see why that got folks' attention. And
oh, dude, I would have been standing right up under that thing the whole show, like if I was a little kid.
And I saw like something they did too is they took it to New York City first, like kind of as a test market, and they specifically put it in FAO Schwartz. And like, dude, I can remember as a kid there was this movie, I want to say it was called Big, that had Tom Hanks in it, and like they go there, they play this piano that's on the.
Don't they go there too in Home Alone?
Yeah, dude, it's super
Isn't
famous.
that-
like I've been there. Like it's cool as shit. Like it's the coolest toy store in the world. Like I mean, I was super hype. I probably went there maybe in my 20s or something like that, and I'm pretty sure I bought video games when I was there and Star Wars type stuff. Yeah, the news.
So you picked Star Wars over Star Trek.
The Star Wars sequels were.
I'm out of here, listeners. Bye. Signing out. Shit.
Plug for The Mandalorian. Been watching it too.
Live long and prosper, bitch.
This is the way. Yeah, but no, yeah, they got a little crazy there. But I can imagine, dude, if I'd have been a kid at that time and I had like they really went over the top there. I remember I was there with my nieces, and I forget exactly. They were quite a bit younger, and there was like a real princess there. Like I mean, they went over the moon for like these, you know, whatever doll was like the latest thing going on right at that time. You know, and they really. You know, it's just like a fantasy of sorts, like where you go look at these things. So super smart move of them, like rolling it out there. And I saw like, you know, maybe on out into New Jersey or something like that. They rented a warehouse there in New Jersey and set up shop and started pumping it out with Rob the Robot. There was like a deluxe set that included all these things. But then, you know, I want to say once they sort of got the ball rolling, they just kind of,
It's so obvious that Rob was a Trojan horse, man. It's so obvious because there were only 2 games that even worked with Rob the Robot.
And they said there were going to be like 5, and like it didn't happen.
Bullshit. Dude, I think they were smart as hell, very clever. Like let's advertise and publicize and get this robot out there and just really really lean on the fact that the American public was all into robotics and the future and Star Wars and Star Trek, and like it was really it was a really, you know, Terminator and RoboCop and Short Circuit. It was no longer a Wild West thing. It was all about the future, right? So I think they're like, let's get a little robot out there. You know, let's get a good engineer. I don't remember the name of the engineer, but he was a really good engineer and helped Nintendo with a lot of the handheld stuff. They got him to design that robot, man, with very basic, clunky, loud movements. It plays 2 games with you. I think one of them's called Stack Up, and the other one's called like Gyroscope or something like that. Yeah. Something like that. And really, like, according to what I saw, when you actually have the Rob there doing his thing, it's actually very slow and very like it seems like it's something that you're going to enjoy one time, and then you probably just put it in the closet.
Yeah, but it almost reminded me of one of those Rube Goldberg machines, like where like you do like 97 things to put some toast into it, like it was literally like he was pushing the B button.
And now.
It's watch like, this, I get this gyro spin. Like I saw. You're like, oh, dude, you got to Rob the Robot, man. Let's check him out. And it's like, okay, buckle in.
Hold on to your horses there, friend.
It's like, I heard he plays the game. Yeah, he does.
Yeah. Watch out, Buster.
Yeah, same way my dog does. Like,
but
like my dog hits a button every now and then. Like,
yeah.
I saw this one part in that gyro game. It's like he had to hit both buttons, and somehow like he held down, like whatever the mechanism.
Yeah,
dude. Mm-hmm. When something's spinning like that, it keeps the force down or something. Like, what's going on there?
Well, no, there were other pieces. It's not sorcery. There were other pieces, man, that weighed it down. I don't know if you spotted those, but there were other like pieces that came in the set that weighed it down so that the button would continue pressed.
Way convoluted.
It is, man. That's why it's so clear that. And now, in retrospect, you know, in hindsight, we can see now that it was very obviously a Trojan horse, and that the only thing they were trying to do was it's like a magic trick. You know, you use one hand to get the person's attention, while with the other hand you swipe the thing, or you put the coin in their pocket, or whatever the case may be. That's what they were doing. They were using one hand to distract, being Rob the Robot. Hey, look over here! Look here! Look here! Yeah. And then at the same time, boom, they put the Nintendo NES, which, like you mentioned earlier, doesn't even have the name gaming on it anywhere.
Or console. No, it just says
entertainment system. Nintendo Entertainment System. Put that in your pocket with the other hand while you're looking at the distraction hand. That's what they did, and it was a great move. And it sold really well in both of the test markets, which was first in New York and the second one was in Los Angeles. And later on, when the official release took place in 1985, I believe, was a North American release, this was after the testing and all the efforts and all of the the struggle that Nintendo went through to make this happen. They released it in 1985, and it did very well. And they released it in a new deluxe package where R.O.B was officially out. He served his purpose. R.O.B retired. And they sold it 2 controllers, the NES, the gun, the Zap gun for Duck Hunt, and then they sold Duck Hunt to you, I believe. I don't know if they even had the combo yet. I think it was just oh gosh, I don't remember. But at that point, they had redone the package. They had
trimmed the
succeeded
fat
at that
a little
point.
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw it like ultimately, and I bet when I finally got around to one, say there in '87, I want to say mine came with 2 controllers and Super Mario, and
well, and wasn't there a cartridge that this may have been post '87 or something, maybe into the '90s, but it got to a point where Duck Hunt and Super Mario were on the same cartridge.
Yeah, I think
remember
we saw
that?
that like when that guy was going for that record. I do remember it, and I can't really even swear what mine was. If I was going to guess, I felt like they were 2 separate things, but I can't swear to that. When I went back and looked like the games that came out at release and like went through there to spark memories, Kung Fu stood out the most. Wah, 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 wah.
I wish you could see Chuck's faces, ladies and gentlemen. Do that again.
He makes this weird ass noise when he kicks and punches. And there's always dude who's just lined up single file to fight you, and you had to go through this multi-level thing, almost like that dragon movie that Bruce Lee's in when he fights Kareem Abdul-Jabbar up there at the top of the thing, and Kareem kicks him with that big old foot, and it's in his chest, on his shirt, it's exactly what Kung Fu was like. Dude, I loved that game, and yeah, it was the wah wah. Wah, 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 wah. You had to kind of time it, with them, and each time you took out a man and did a kick, it made that noise, and at some point they threw things at you, and you had to.
If you landed a kick, did it go?
Yeah, and it was more like all it took was one kick. It wasn't saying Street Fighter or something like that where you really have to lay into them a few times and there's combos and stuff. If it wasn't a boss, you pretty much were just the white pajamas guys. You were laying them out with one kick, like Chuck Norris or something.
That's satisfying, man. It's equivalent of getting a headshot today in the Warzone games.
And it was in the arcade, so I also remember having those memories already. So it was a pretty decent port. It wasn't perfect, but it was way better than Pac-Man or like the disasters that we've talked about. So yeah, I definitely have
Well, that's
God,
what happened.
The Nintendo game. Thank God for R.O.B the robot, and I feel like they saved the day. Is the highlight of the story, really. Dude, guess how much R.O.B the robot is worth today? If you got a R.O.B that's still looking pretty good in the box there. See ya.
Well, how much it's worth? If you asked me if I wanted to buy it?
On eBay.
Oh, okay.
What's it going for on eBay?
Let's see. 2,900.
Great day. It's like $700, but.
Oh, okay. I went way over. Dude, I thought you were going to say something crazy.
I don't know that I saw one that was. I don't know that I saw one that was never.
I thought
opened.
you were going to say something nuts.
I bet
man.
never opened or something like that. I did kind of hype it up new in the box, but more what I saw was out of the box for sure. And they were going about $800
I wouldn't pay that much for. I don't. Yeah, I get it. It's just part of the fan. You want to have, if you're an enthusiast, you want to have stuff like that. But I wouldn't get a R.O.B.
Everybody can get wrapped up at some point. Yeah, you're right.
Dude, if we went to Japan right now, if we went to the gaming district or the electronics districts in Tokyo, we could find one. I bet you for real cheap.
Yeah, you're right. And get a trip to Japan.
I don't remember what the name of that neighborhood. I think it's Akihabara or something like that. But there's a district there where they got all that stuff, man. Yeah. But yeah, Nintendo saved the day. reconstituted confidence in the console, and I don't remember the dates on this, but Sega also released a console right around there. Didn't do anywhere near as good as the NES did, but Sega also emerged right around that time.
And they're from Japan
well,
as well,
Sega
right?
emerged. Huh?
Sega's in Japan as well, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
and Sega's been around since the '60s, I think. But they also released their one of their earlier consoles at the same time, like right around the same time. But Nintendo just, man, Mario.
And what's crazy is it wasn't the first time we had saw Mario. Like, I had honestly forgotten that. I do remember the arcade version of it was just called Mario Brothers. It wasn't Super Mario Brothers. It was called Mario Brothers, and you were up against like crabs and there weren't turtles exactly. There was this big.
Are you sure?
Yeah, there was this POW thing.
Wasn't the very first time Mario appeared in the Donkey Kong game? Because remember, Donkey Kong would be throwing those things down the ladders, and the little Mario guy was trying to go up, and he'd like dodge the barrels. It was a platform.
He's definitely in that. That's him. But what I'm saying is there was a game that was called Mario Brothers, and Luigi and him played at the same time. And I don't know if you saw like Joust, like kind of how there was a few levels up above you. That's exactly how that screen was. And there were crabs up there, and there was a thing called a POW that you hit. And when you hit that, they flipped over, and you could go knock them off, but you couldn't pick them up.
What?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it was on the Atari 2600. I'm pretty sure. Like, and I'm sure it's been on a ton of other games first. I mean, since then. So. It took me a minute to remember it too, but when I go back, I played that at the arcade, and it was my introduction to Mario Brothers. And
I'm fact checking you there, Buster.
yeah, I don't want to lie to folks, but I'm not kidding.
I'm just playing.
It's definitely
Mario
high.
Bros. 2600, 1983. Dang, you're right.
See the
Look
crabs?
at that!
See the POW?
Look at that! Yeah. There's like blue circles.
Yeah, it's different. And you didn't have the blocks. Like you actually hit that ground they were standing on to knock them over. And it kind of bumped up a little bit.
I see. Look at this.
And there were several levels to it. And you would play, 2-player with your buddy somebody got to be Luigi.
Was this a Nintendo game that was just on Atari?
It was. And it was at the arcade. And I don't know.
That's it. I see.
But it's before the Nintendo Entertainment System existed.
That's what's confusing me. Yeah, I'm looking at it right here.
Yeah.
It says Atari 2600 video game cartridge Mario Bros. Copyright Nintendo of America.
Does it say
It says
when
Nintendo.
it was released?
It was released in 1983.
Yeah, and
So Nintendo of America, after the whole Activision thing where now other companies could make games for other consoles, Nintendo of America made Mario Bros. For Atari.
And it was good, dude. Yeah, I remember playing it. I mean, it actually was better than Pac-Man. Pac-Man, you could not go down. Like if you watch videos of people playing Pac-Man, show me where someone... Like the only time you can turn is when you hit a wall. Like I watched some as we were going over this, like that's the fault in that damn game. Like they don't talk about it, but that's what's wrong.
Oh, dude, so much is wrong with that game. If you do a side by side and you look at Pac-Man arcade version versus Pac-Man Atari,
versus the box, versus what was on the back of the box. I'm pretty sure they used it from the arcade.
No wonder confidence dwindled.
Yeah.
That's an outright lie in the eyes of a young gamer.
Well, and it's like first time it's like shame on them, but second time, shame on me for believing.
Yeah, second time GTS. No, what is it? GFT? No, GFY. It's GTFY.
Yeah, WXYZ.
What am I even saying? Jeez. GT. I'm trying to say G. You know what I'm trying to say.
That's right.
Hell with all of y'all. You know what I'm trying to say.
Right. You smell what I'm stepping in.
I really freaking messed that one up. Anyways, we're all humans here.
Well, let me hit you with this, man. I feel like we've hit the consequences and the after effects and long term effects, and we kind of explained, how this came to be and who, what, when, where, and why of it. But could this happen again, man? Could this happen again? You think, or like, could we see a version of this somehow in our lifetimes?
No, I don't think so. Not on such a large scale. You got to remember this. There was a 97% drop in the market for them. I mean, it crashed hard. So a crash to that scale, no, I don't think so. Just because, really, like gaming, it seems like it just forms like a part of what is the digital market these days. The online digital industry, and I just think there's so much there's so much knowledge, so many systems, so many protections, so many SOPs or standard operating procedures, and we'll just call it quote unquote know-how around how to handle these processes, coming up with a game, releasing a game, marketing in a game, all that. I don't think so. I do think that on a smaller level, which we see all the time, companies can make bad choices that will, make or break their success in the industry. I think it's probably a lot harder to cut out your piece in this industry than it was probably back in the day when everyone was grabbing at it. Mm. But man, it just seems like the gaming industry is evolving so quickly. I mean, and maybe I might be wrong. Maybe there will be a crash. I just don't know what that crash would look like.
Well, and you probably did, like, there was a crash in '77 as well. Like this crash of '83 isn't the only one.
That makes sense though. The crash in '77, which was far less insane, it made sense because that was still the wild, wild west of gaming industry. Like the '70s, '80s. Maybe a little bit of the 90s, but not so much at that point. It was such a wild, wild west. Like these CEOs and game developers were creating it was a new relationship for them. I mean, these business brass were dealing with gaming nerds and developers and people that love to just snack out and sit on computers and program on BASIC and on Apple and just program and make stuff. I think that was like a brand new relationship. So they had to navigate that, and they also had to navigate how to document these arrangements on paper in the legal realm for the first time. There was a lot of discovery happening, a lot of sectors meeting each other and trying to figure out how they were going to interrelate and interact, right? Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of mistakes happening, a lot of discovery happening. Like these folks from Atari discovered, hey, we don't have to sit here and not get any credit for our games. We can actually just leave and make games on our own. Mm. That was innovative, and that was a complete new thing. They didn't know they could do that until they did it. Yeah. So this is just I'm doing a very poor job of trying to say that it was the wild, wild west back then. And if there was an environment in which crashes could happen, it was that one.
Yeah, the learning curve was steep at that time. Yeah,
exactly. And I think there's just so much knowledge around it now and know-how, and does that mean that it's not going to evolve and there could be potentially peaks and lulls, or what is it? Peaks and what's the name? The proper
peaks and pokes.
Going back to the program. No, just ups and downs. Let's call it. Yeah, there certainly will be, but a crash like the one of '83, no, they've got way more. They got a tremendous amount of experience in it, and it makes me go back, and what makes me wonder, what could the brass have been thinking? Like in Atari and these other companies, what were they thinking, and not focusing on quality and focusing on delivering a good product and securing their legal agreements and their licensing and all of that very cleverly, and putting more attention to detail. part of me wants to be like, how could they not have, like, what were they thinking? But at the same time, I get it. Even though we know it wasn't, now in retrospect, it was a fad.
Yeah.
It was a fad for these people, I think, and they just wanted to get that money and get every last drop out of it, and it backfired.
Yeah.
It was Wild West.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's just one of the realities of business when it comes down to it. I think it gets especially complicated in things like this that are actually, like I think from our perspective, it's something that's cool. I heard this guy the other day saying like the most likely business you could start that would fail would be a record company. And because it's really sexy and kind of really cool. But, he pointed out that it's real easy to see that things like storage units, there's all kinds of businesses that aren't sexy that, show incredible profit margins. And it's not any secret of how they work. But, people want to do things that are cool. And I think we look at it like that, but they definitely took a more, business approach to it and didn't. It's a much safer bet that it's just a fad than to plan for the future and the future not show up, I think. So, yeah.
You got anything else?
I think we've covered just about everything. How about you? What, like anything else you can think of, like final thought wise, or?
No, I don't think so. I think this was an event in the gaming history that's it's worth knowing about. It's definitely, and it's just interesting, man. That's all, to think of like a gaming crash, because nowadays gaming is such a huge market and such a force to be reckoned with that it's hard to, it's hard to be like, oh, there was a crash. There was a gaming recession. It's funny.
Yeah.
Now it's just looking back, it's just kind of funny. Reading about it and checking it out and watching videos and stuff was fun. Beyond just knowing about it and understanding it, I don't got much more than that.
Yeah.
Thank goodness for Nintendo.
And R.O.B the robot.
Yeah, muchas gracias. Gracias, Roberto, el robot.
My buddy.
El robot. I'm going to see what his name was in Mexico, or if he ever made it down here.
I wonder.
And if they named him Roberto.
That is, I wonder like how this showed itself in Mexico as far as, because it gets mentioned North America, so we're obviously talking about Canada and Mexico too. I would say, I could see some of those games in the bargain bin making it down there, more than not, kind of thing. But it'd be hard for me to understand how that might go back in the 80s.
I mean, I'm sure in Mexico City and Guadalajara and Monterrey, it was probably just like up in the U.S.
Yeah.
But it's hard to say. I don't know. You'd be surprised, man. We've got Amazon Mexico down here and stuff, which has been going for some time. And I only recently started taking advantage of it. So I can have the darndest things delivered right to my door. But, if I want to find a cream soda, good frickin' luck. Like getting a Dr. Pepper's hit and miss over here at the tiendita. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes they're there. Sometimes they're in stock. And it's like, oh, go boy, Dr. Pepper. Yeah. And then I'll go and grab some ice and just be like, pour it up and just be like, Dr. Pepper. Sometimes.
Do you think it's that uncertainty, though, that makes it taste a little sweeter, possibly? I think.
No, it's just not having the access to it, and it's not that oh, and we don't have Dr. Pepper in Mexico. It's not, it's nothing like that. It just happens to be where I live in Mexico.
Yeah.
Which you obviously know, Chuck. You've been here. You come all the time. You have your own setup here, but
honestly, those are some of my fondest memories too. Like just when I've had to learn to do without or be patient. I remember the first time I went to a store there that was like closed in the middle of the day. And I was wanting to get my car fixed, and I just had to sit down and wait a couple hours. I'd never do that in Nashville.
They're on siesta, bro. not where I'm coming from. Yeah, well, but you're here.
Like, I would pitch a fit in Asheville. Like,
From 1 to 3, people are on siesta. Yeah, get over it.
Yeah.
You're not going to get anything from anyone from 1 to 3.
Yeah.
So you might as well just, when you can't beat them,
join
them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Take a siesta.
I'm with it. No, it definitely is. Like I guess I look at it in a romantic way, but yeah, it'd be interesting to visit that some more later. Like I love, you can give us that insight too from Mexico there, but yeah, definitely appreciate everyone listening in, and you guys hit us with those ideals for new shows, and hope we enlightened you.
Ideas.
I said ideas.
No, you said ideals. We're gonna go back and listen to that. I'm just giving you a hard time. I'm always gonna give you a hard time.
Jesus. It's like I'm illiterate in 2 languages. You are. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, definitely. If you have any new ideas.
I'm sorry. Hey, you said it to me once too. Your friends will tell you how it is, straightforward, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not behind your back. Baby.
Yeah, your real friends stab you in the front. I will say that. Oscar Wilde said that, but he also took it in the rear too. So,
is that true?
It's just a fact.
I don't know much about that guy. Wasn't he like an author or something?
Yeah, he's the shit, dude. Yeah, he's pretty slick. But yeah, he swung,
did he like men or something?
That way. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Papa.
Figured I'd go ahead and add that, but no, I definitely appreciate that, and I am working on that. I have no idea where the hell that comes from, but it pops back up sometimes. But
so this was an awesome episode. I know it's it's probably not the most I don't know how to put it, but just entertaining or fun or whatever episode compared to some of the other ones we've been doing lately, but we definitely wanted to talk about the game crash a little bit, and there'll probably be some, meta topics within the game crash at large that we'll revisit. It's just nuts, man. A gaming crash. I don't know. Don't need to rehash it all over again. Yeah. I mean, one hell of a crash and burn, 97%.
I've got
Goodness
ET on
gracious.
an emulator in here. I want to see how long. Wonder how long I could take it. God.
Before you lose your mind and punch the screen.
Let me go find
that's
that
funny.
fucker. Yeah. I need to rewatch that movie, but it would be interesting. I remember him having this thing, like he communicated with his home planet somehow with like a toy from that time. It's called the See and Say, I think, or something like that. Seek and Say.
I'll have to go back and watch it too, man, because I don't even remember. I mean, I know I've seen E.T., but yeah.
Just think about if Drew Barrymore, if like was your third grade girlfriend or something at that time. Like that's what I was.
I had a huge crush on her too, man.
Oh my God,
It's okay.
I still do.
I know that's really why you want to go and watch it again.
Yeah, you're right. All right, I'm gone.
Signing out.
All right, well, let's wrap this thing up.
Awesome. Chuck, thank you, man. I'm looking forward to our next episode, and thank you, everyone. Hasta la próxima.
Yeah, see everyone.